Welcome everybody to Strangest Species, episode 52, the 1 year anniversary special that ain't gonna be so special.
I
am your host, Mike Davis, here with the one and only Ethne Davis.
Yeah, I'm almost the one and only. I only know of personally one other, but I know of another character in a movie that's another.
But not Davis.
No, I guess that's true. Not Davis, just Ethne.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually know of two in real life. I just have never met the second one, but I know of her and she's real.
But not Davis.
No, but not Davis. I was more focused on my first name.
You gotta listen to the whole sentence.
Sorry.
That's okay. Well, happy 1 year anniversary to you, my dear.
Well, to us.
To us.
Yeah. Strangest species.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
It's very crazy to think that it's been a year already and that I don't feel all that different than when we started.
No. We're a little more officially set up.
We are definitely more officially set up now, but still pretty
rustic
in the setup.
But I like it.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
comfy.
Yeah. The higher
Cozy.
table's much better.
I would like a microphone that was on like a swivel stand so I don't have to
Slouch.
sit the microphone's a little too short for me.
Just a little. Well, okay. I don't know what a swivel stand is, but
Like a boom arm.
oh, wow. Like
But
extra fancy.
Yeah, I could lounge back in my chair and bring it close to me and still talk.
Next time.
Next time. That's after year 2 when we're making the big bucks.
Or no bucks.
Well, right now we're making no bucks, which is why I'm not buying the new
Swivel
boom arm thing.
boom arm thing. Okay.
I'll just hurt my back for all of you.
For all of you. Perfect.
But it is crazy. 1 year, huh?
It is crazy. I would never have guessed that.
All the stories we've talked about. It's hard for me to think that there's been 52 of them. That we've actually covered that many different things.
Yeah. And our son
We've never missed a week.
loves listening to them. Our pre-recorded ones, then we had the emergency eye surgery and the whole change of plans. That was like heartbreaking to listen to.
Did you listen to those with him?
Yes. That was just yucky.
Yeah.
Just so much yuck. But other than that, I mean, they have all brought back, like, they just kind of make me laugh. And I don't really know. I just analyze everything I say. It's a love-hate thing to listen to them.
So I listened to the most recent, maybe 2 or 3 this weekend, because we were doing a lot of driving, and I had our oldest son, and he was trying to catch up, and so we were on those ones. And so it was funny to listen to him because I actually remembered enough that I would be like, oh, he'd ask me a question, like, oh, just hold on, we're going to talk about that in a second, but what's even more funny sometimes is listening to an older one, and I won't know what we're going to talk about. I mean, I know like the storyline, but I don't know what we're going to say. I don't remember. And then one of us will say something on the show, and I'll think something, and then that's what I'll say on the show. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, apparently I still, that's how my brain works.
Your brain still works the same as it did when we recorded it?
Cheesy thing I would say in response or sarcastic thing or whatever.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah. So how's your week been?
Busy. This time of year is too busy to even breathe. It's too much, actually. Every year it's too much.
I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon.
No, it's just, I wish there was a way to make it not be this way, but it's impossible.
Yeah.
Every school, every kid has a million things. There's after school stuff all the time. There's final this and plays that and shows this and concerts that, and I don't know. It's just
Plus all the games.
Well, sure. It's just a lot. Plus all the other things we do in our personal lives. So I don't actually look forward to it.
Like your husband making you podcast?
I mean, that's one of the many things. But the garden has to be out, right? And you have to plant it by a certain time or there's no point in planting the camper. There's just, it's like, there's no way to change it.
Yeah. And it's kind of a catch-22 to ourselves we have a camper that we leave on a river. It's super gorgeous all summer long. And so we'll spend 1 to 3 days a week there, kind of based on the week. And so that forces you to do nothing when you're there.
We love it.
Which is amazing. But that also forces you to do exponentially more when you're at home because you've got to catch up for the 1 to 3 days that you did nothing. And so it does, it's got its give and takes.
Yeah, it has its give and takes. But there's also all the other things. So anyway, it's like my least favorite time, like the last probably 3 weeks of school. And I think every kid gets super squirrely. Like every kid is so anxious and excited about summer break that they just get squirrely. Even if they're like a teenager, they're squirrely in their own way. Like
and ours are already super squirreled
super
all the time.
But I mean, like
So
even
they're extra squirrely.
Right. Oh, anyway. So
I get what you're saying.
yeah, it's just busy.
It's busy.
Yeah.
So I thought before we went into our story today, we would do a fun little 1 year, not in review, but we're going to go through some statistics of the podcast
Oh.
and see kind of where we are 1 year in. When we started, I don't know if anyone even knew that we were starting this until the first episode came out. And then we're like, hey guys, we did this.
Like, are you talking about family or
even
friends
or family.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, this is definitely 100% you and me out of this closet room that we're in.
Yeah, hope and a prayer.
So let's go through the top countries for the first year.
Like the top 5?
We'll do 5, 10, something. We'll see.
Okay.
So number 1's pretty dang obvious.
Canada.
And when I say what we're talking about as far as the number of people who listen to the show.
I'm saying Canada.
You think Canada's the number 1?
Yeah.
Not even close.
I just had to put a plug in there for Canada. Go Oilers. Okay. Sorry. That was my plug.
Okay.
It's the United States of America.
States of America.
Blah.
By a lot. But we're from the United States of America. So it makes sense.
Yeah, but I still have family and friends in
Yes.
Canada.
So number 2 is Canada.
See?
And it's quite a ways in the lead of number 2. But like a 10th of the size of the listeners in the United States.
Okay.
Number 3. What do you think number 3 is?
I feel like we talked about this recently. It's Germany.
It is not Germany.
Oh, it's not. Australia.
It is not Australia.
Oh. England?
England.
England. Okay.
Well, the United Kingdom.
Oh, I guess that does include 3 countries?
I don't know.
I don't know. Isn't it Scotland, England, and Ireland is the United Kingdom?
I'm not going to say what the United Kingdom is.
Okay.
Wales?
I don't know. Okay. I'm not going to say either for sure.
Nope. I'm American. Therefore, I have all of the rights to say I know nothing about the United Kingdom.
Okay.
I've
Perfect.
severed myself from them.
I had a lot of British friends growing up. I feel like I
You're
should know.
essentially British.
No, but I feel like I should know, but I don't for sure.
I think I do know, but I'm not willing to risk it. So,
Okay.
number 4, and just barely behind the United Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
like 2 listeners shy of the United Kingdom.
Australia.
Yeah.
And then Germany.
Then Germany. So those are the top 5. U.S., Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, Germany. Then there is a pretty good drop before number 6.
But I have no idea what number 6 is.
New
Not
Zealand.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Then after New Zealand.
One of these days I'm going to learn the haka and I'll do it for all of our New Zealand listeners.
Then after New Zealand, the next 4 or 5 are almost all the same, but a good drop off after that. The Netherlands, Norway, France, Poland, and Switzerland.
Wow.
Then we have another little drop. Colombia,
Do I have any listeners in Japan? Any of my Japanese friends love me?
Russia, Sweden, Denmark, Vietnam, Italy, Ireland, Bermuda, Bahamas, India, Belgium, Portugal, Costa Rica, Algeria, Spain, Austria, Mexico, Brazil, the United Arab Emirates, the Philippines, South Africa, Singapore, Slovenia, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Morocco, Indonesia, Finland, Japan. There we go.
Like, what number are they?
I don't know. There's no numbers here.
There's no numbers there.
I've had to scroll a little way.
I need to send messages
They
to
are
my
tied
Japanese
with
friends.
Taiwan, but ahead of Iran, Kenya, Kazakhstan, Senegal, Thailand, Panama, Grenada, Puerto Rico, and Hong Kong.
Wow. So is that even if there's only one listener from that place?
Correct.
Okay.
Hong Kong only has one listener. Thank you, whoever you are in Hong Kong. We love
Maybe
you.
it's someone that was like from the United States on a business trip in Hong Kong.
Could be.
Yeah. We do have friends in Hong Kong, though.
Do we?
Hey, isn't that where Michael is?
No, they're in Shanghai.
Oh, they're in Shanghai.
In China.
That's right.
Okay, so we're going to do another one of these little exercises, but we're not going to go through all of them. Cities.
Oh, they even break it down by cities?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's a lot more of them, obviously.
Obviously. Yes, please do
So
not
we're
list
not
them
gonna
all.
go through all of them.
Don't even just do 10.
Okay, top 10 cities.
Spokane,
Spokane is number 1. And why is that?
because we're from
Because
Spokane.
we're from here.
Yeah.
All right, what do you think number 2 is? This is the whole year combined.
And this is United States only or anywhere?
This is everywhere in the world.
Tri-Cities.
No, they're nowhere.
Oh, okay.
That's my hometown. No one likes me there.
Cleveland?
No, number 2 is Seattle.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're
It's
not
close
far
by.
from there. Yeah.
All right, number 3. I think will surprise you. I think the next 3 will surprise you.
Can you give me a clue? It's a big country.
These are the 2 biggest cities in the United States.
Oh, New York and LA?
Brooklyn and LA
Brooklyn and LA.
are 3 and 4.
Okay.
5 is our first international city.
Calgary?
No.
Oh.
That would have been my guess too.
Yeah.
Sydney.
Oh. Sydney, Australia, huh? That's cool.
In New South Wales, apparently, because that's what it says here.
Okay.
And then Calgary.
And then Calgary.
Then Portland, Salt Lake, Raleigh, North Carolina,
Interesting.
Berlin,
Oh, wow.
and then Weaverville, North Carolina.
Weaverville.
Yeah, quite a few listeners out of Weaverville.
Huh. That's so interesting.
I don't know anything about Weaverville,
Never heard of Weaverville.
but hello, Weaverville, North Carolina. Then New York,
Okay.
separate borough from
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Oh. But all essentially the same, right?
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah. I mean, just
You don't even know when you're leaving one and going to
no.
the other?
There's bodies of water between. Well, not all of them.
yeah.
Some of them between Manhattan and
Yeah,
Queens and Harlem and blah blah
all
blah.
that stuff.
And then there's just a bunch of random ones. You know,
Okay.
Chicago, Eugene, Perth,
No, you
Huntington
can't.
Beach.
Nope.
I'm not going through. I'm just picking random ones.
Oh, okay.
Wellington.
Wellington, where?
Wellington.
Is that England? Sounds English.
Yeah, it sounds like a food. Because it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just,
It's kind of cool.
yeah, that is kind of cool. It is funny. Some of them that are international don't say the country, so I don't know where they are.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Like Wroclaw in Lower Silesia. Don't know where that is, but it's one spot ahead of Paris. And tied with Kokomo, Indiana.
Kokomo?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't
Probably
there a song?
Yes.
Kokomo.
There's also a tropical paradise. Probably
Like
not
by the
what
Beach
the Beach
Boys?
Boys is singing about in Indiana. Yeah, it's from the movie.
Hey, you don't know if they're singing about Indiana.
I'm
show-
pretty sure actually, because it's from the movie Cocktails.
Oh, the show we watched yesterday mentioned Calgary, I will say, and it made me feel special.
Sorry, I wasn't listening to you. What'd you say?
Okay, wow. Why don't you tell me how you really feel?
I feel.
No, I said the show that we watched yesterday mentioned Calgary, and I felt very special.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we watched the first 2 episodes of The Good Place.
Yeah, I still don't know how I feel about it. The premise is kind of funny, but they mentioned Calgary, and I thought, oh,
Anytime someone mentions Calgary, I think he's on board.
yes, I am. Of
Okay.
course, I got to give a shout out to my hometown.
Okay. Enough of all of that hoopla.
Yeah, let's focus.
time
Okay,
to-
what are we
time to-
talking about today?
We're going to talk about the Rocky Mountains.
Oh, I
As
was going to
always-
say Cedar Point.
If you are joining us for the first time, Ethne never knows what we're talking about here until we start talking about it. So if she seems very lost, it's by design.
Was on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cedar Point is not.
Nowhere near the Rocky Mountains.
Not on topic.
No.
Okay.
but a good guess nonetheless. The name of the specific mountain, which we're going to talk about today, is Turtle Mountain.
Turtle Mountain.
Have you ever heard of Turtle Mountain?
I'm ashamed to say it, but Dad, I don't know Turtle Mountain. I bet you my dad does.
I bet you your dad maybe does. I don't know.
I mean, he knows like all the mountains. You drive out through the Rocky Mountains. He's like, oh, there's that one. There's the Sisters. There's this. I mean, like, how do you even know this? It's crazy. They all look the same. I mean, there's a few that don't, but anyway.
Mostly made of rock with some trees on them.
Yes.
Sometimes snow.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about Turtle Mountain.
Turtle Mountain.
Now, the natives in the area called this mountain by a different name. They called it the mountain that moves.
Oh, I was going to say Tortuga Mountain, maybe.
That's what the pirates called it. So, on April 5th, 1903,
okay,
there was a miner who was working down in the coal mines
of Turtle Mountain,
deep inside of the mountain. When all of a sudden, he heard a huge popping crack noise. It's like an explosion had gone off in the mine. But he knew it wasn't an explosion because he knew what an explosion sounded like. It was something different, something unique, crazy loud. And like I said, it was some kind of like cracking, popping noise. It just echoed throughout the tunnels.
Weird.
Yeah. Do you have any miners in your family? Any history of mining?
Not that I know of.
My grandpa mined for a short time, but I wouldn't call him a miner. He worked in various mines.
Which one?
Ace.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew the dam and I knew the
Pre-dam, I think.
site.
Maybe it was after the dam.
I don't know. I didn't know
he worked on Hoover Dam. But yeah, he worked in Park City. Park City mines.
Oh.
Maybe some other mines too. It was actually funny. I went on a tour with him once in the Park City mines, and he was like giving the tour guide a guide about the mines.
That's funny.
He was like, I used to work here.
That's really funny. For all of you other people, it's tour, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
Not tour.
Well, it could be whatever you want it to be.
Just kidding.
So,
I think I have an uncle, my nan's brother. I think he was a miner. He lived like in the mountains in BC. I think he was.
My grandpa definitely was not a miner.
Yeah.
But there was a time when he worked in a mine.
Okay.
So here's this giant explosion. And so he leaves his gear and he goes searching for the source of such a loud and unfamiliar sound.
Interesting.
As one would, right?
Yeah.
So eventually he comes across the source. And what it is, you know how in the mines they put up the wood, the big wooden beams to help support the roof? So one of those had snapped like a toothpick.
Woof.
Those big fatty.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Essentially it exploded.
Weird.
And so, the question to him is like, okay, well, that's weird. Is the mountain moving?
Yeah.
Is it collapsing?
Right.
Was there an earthquake?
Yeah.
And so he reports it to his supervisors and they go and investigate it. But after they investigate it, they deem, that's not great, but everything else seems to be fine. None of the other timbers are broken. I guess it's nothing to worry about. Now, do you think it's nothing to worry about?
Anytime I'm underneath the ground, I would get out of there in a heartbeat and never go back in, but I wouldn't really want to go in the first place. So I would be freaking out.
Well, I can tell you that's not a good thing because we're talking about it tonight.
That's how you know.
And that guy should have known that in 100 and some years, a podcast about bad stuff was going to talk about him. So he should have known it was bad.
And got his butt out of there.
Yeah. So actually, he did get his butt out of there. 2 weeks later, same guy. He's sleeping in a tent. He's not on shift. Outside of the mine.
Why is he sleeping in a tent?
Lots of guys back in the day stayed in almost like boarding style housing.
Like on the mountainside?
Yeah.
Oh. Why don't you just go home?
That's probably where he probably didn't have a home. He probably came in to work at the mine and stayed there. Probably paid part of his salary to have a place to sleep.
Sounds cold.
Well, the Rocky Mountains stretch a long ways.
Yeah. It's still.
We don't know where we are in the Rocky Mountains yet.
Oh. Okay.
So he's in bed, regardless
Regardless.
of Ethne's questions
Sorry.
about the weather.
No question about the weather. Just statements.
When in the middle of the night, he is violently thrown out of his bed. And he wakes up, I assume terrified, but also very confused. Now, if this was you, what would you assume is happening?
An earthquake?
That's what I would think too. But
I
there
mean-
must be a mega earthquake going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever been in an earthquake?
I have.
Really?
Mhm.
Me too.
I
Where
think.
was your earthquake? Was I with you? 'Cause
Mm,
I don't remember that, if that's what it was.
well, they said that Spokane had one, didn't
Well,
they?
sometimes they say we have them, but
yeah,
you don't
but I
feel them.
don't. No, so in Japan.
Oh.
Yeah. It was very weird.
Yeah, I was in Honduras.
Yeah, I was in Japan.
And I felt like I was
Almost like you.
dizzy.
Yeah, almost like
Like the
you
whole
have-
building was moving, and I was like, "Why is everything moving?"
What's
but
the
it was like
word?
waving,
It's happened to you before.
like vertigo.
Vertigo.
Exactly like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's
Only
like-
I didn't feel nauseous, but it looked like vertigo.
Yeah. It was felt like vertigo. And like
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if I was at Yoko and Papa's, but like something was swinging from the roof. Maybe it was just in my own apartment. Like either a hanging lamp or like something was like kind of swaying. I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't
I
a
remember
rumble
feeling
like you see in the
no, it's not a
movies.
rumble.
Yeah, the whole house was. I remember just
Like a
thinking like
weird-
and I was very confused.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was like being on a boat but on the ground.
Yeah. That's a good way of describing it.
Yeah.
But if you get thrown from your bed, I mean, almost like I would feel maybe more of like a mountain slide, like a rock slide. But then you wouldn't get thrown really. You would just fall down the mountainside or get crushed by the mountain coming down. So I don't know. That's a weird description.
Ethne,
Thrown from your bed.
for the first time in 1 year, you are dead on correct.
With?
Rock slide.
Really?
Yeah.
But it actually throws him out of his bed?
So he wasn't in the path of the rock slide, but it was such a giant, violent rock
Oh, it
slide that it was shaking everything.
Oh, you guys, I did it
You did it.
on the 1 year mark.
I know.
I've guessed so wrong every time.
Should we retire? I mean, you didn't guess what we were going to talk about.
No,
But
no.
you guessed something.
Yeah, I guess something because usually I'm so off.
Yeah. So this was a rock slide, but it wasn't any rock slide. It was the entire face of the mountain falling
We're talking
off.
about Frank Slide.
And this became the deadliest rock slide in Canadian history.
Yes, we're talking about Frank Slide.
We are talking about Frank Slide.
Ba-dum.
What is Frank Slide, Ethne? Since you know now.
Well, I've never stopped at the visitor center and I feel guilty for that, but I drive through it multiple times in my life.
Multiple times a year.
Well, multiple times, yeah, a year. So it's just past the Crow's Nest, and you are actually going through the Crow's Nest Pass in British Columbia.
You're actually in Alberta.
Right at the border of Alberta. And then you come into Alberta and you're literally just driving through this, I don't know, 5-kilometer length of rock. Just rock. You can all the way from the mountain, all the way across the freeway, over up to the other side, just all this rock. And you can now see, trees have started to try to grow through the rock, but really they had to blast and level just to put the road back through. And I've always just been told that a whole town, that sat underneath that mountain, which apparently is called Turtle Mountain, which I've never known.
I know. That's why I thought it was fun to trick you like that.
That is tricky. Got completely covered by this side of the mountain. And you can see when you look up the mountain.
Oh, yeah. The whole half of the
like
mountain.
the whole half of the mountain is missing.
Well, it's not half, but.
Well, it's a huge chunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
This
that's
is
it.
cool.
That's the whole story right there. You got
No, I want to know more.
it. So we'll come back to that more later.
Okay.
Like we'll talk more about how it looks today. But you're dead on.
I
right.
wondered now
It's-
if it's called, why is it called Frank Slide if the mountain was Turtle Mountain? Was the name of the town like
the town was Frank.
Frank?
So in 1901, there was an American entrepreneur named Henry Frank
Okay.
who found a notable sized coal deposit in Turtle Mountain.
Turtle Mountain.
And so he established a mine and a small town named
Frank.
Frank. in the district of Alberta.
Mm-hmm. It's like pretty close to the border
It is.
of Alberta, BC.
I didn't know this. At that time, Alberta was not a province.
Oh, it was called a district?
It was the district of Alberta, which was part of the Northwest Territories.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It didn't become a province until 1905.
Oh, well, there you have it.
There's a little history of your home province, babe.
I'm sure I was taught that in school at some point, and I just don't remember. But that makes the Northwest Territories ginormous if it used to involve all of Alberta.
I wonder if it was BC too.
Oh, yeah, I wonder. It's so interesting.
It is.
My dad would know.
Probably.
He's going to be ashamed that I'm his daughter right now.
Your sister called me the other day with a dental question, and I told her for the 1-year anniversary we were going to talk about something close to Calgary. Yeah.
Oh.
She thought Bigfoot.
Oh, Bigfoot? Nah.
And I said, no. You have to wait, though, and see. So.
Head smashed in buffalo jump.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
For ostriches.
Mm.
My eyelid's twitching. Don't you hate when that happens?
Yes, I do.
It's like wigging out over here.
No, my eye's always wigging out.
That's true. So the town started with only 19 people.
That's teeny.
They're little. But within 2 years, the population had grown to a little over 1,000.
Wow, that's really fast.
So actually, Frank was a pretty hopping place for the early 1900s.
Anywhere you could find work because of the mine. Yeah, that makes sense.
So on April 29th, 1903.
So, but still before it became a province.
Yes.
Okay.
At 4:10 in the morning,
It threw
the
him.
mountain just broke.
So.
And we're going to get into why and how and all the
Yes.
things.
So the snapping of the wood was the moving of the mountain.
Was literally the mountain groaning and shifting and
And they just thought, oh, this is no big deal.
But it wasn't, I'm assuming it wasn't visible movement.
But if you're snapping a piece of wood, something would have had to snap. It would have had to have been the mountain.
Sure, but maybe they thought like, oh, opening up this shaft put more pressure on this ceiling and it pushed this wood. Maybe this wood was already old and crummy. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So now this was fascinating to me. Like Ethne said, we have been to this place. You can't drive from our house to her parents' house in Calgary without going through Frank Slide.
Right.
And they literally put the highway right through the middle of the rock slide.
Which is pretty neat.
Yeah. In my brain, that rock slide, where you drive on the road, I mean, the rocks are piled up, I don't know, pretty high, 20 feet on either side or so. In my brain, that's always the bottom of the rock slide.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So when the mountain broke and the rock slide happened, 120 million tons of rock broke off of the mountain.
That is.
And created a literal wave of rock. Think of it, and it moved. I mean, it wasn't literally like water,
but it would
but it moved
like water.
Like a fluid. Yeah.
How many, say that one more, how many tons?
120 million tons.
That's crazy.
Of rock. Which rock is not soft. This isn't marshmallows.
I mean, I think I knew that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole slide took about 90 seconds from start to finish.
I mean, these people are just instantly gone.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
just
you have no idea
what even happened.
Happened. Well, that hopefully for a lot of them. I mean,
yeah.
Maybe some got pinned weird.
Well, I think I've heard just from different history stuff and probably other people, they didn't, I mean, there was so much rock, they couldn't actually rescue really anybody.
I don't believe anyone was rescued.
Yeah. Like,
well, people survived for sure. So,
but they must have been like on the outskirts or just missed it or,
right.
But I'm just saying like, they couldn't even, the town was literally, it's still underneath all the rock.
Right. We're going to get to how much rock that is in a second.
Okay, sorry.
120 million tons sounds like a lot. But I don't think just throwing that number out there, you're going to comprehend how much rock that really is.
Until you kind of
put
describe
it in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, it took about 80 seconds, minute and a half, somewhere in there, for the mountainside to break, sweep across the valley floor, and butt up against the next mountain. The thunderous sound of that slide could be heard as far as 200 kilometers or 124 miles away.
That's so
Now,
crazy.
this isn't going to mean anything to you guys listening, but for Ethne, that essentially would be like a rock slide happening here in Spokane and my parents hearing it
in
the Tri-Cities,
That's,
which is about a 2-hour drive.
yeah, that's crazy.
That's loud. Like, that's crazy loud.
Like deafening if you're close by
Yeah.
and you survive, maybe.
That's insane.
Yeah. Wow.
But if you had a tsunami style wave of rock, one would assume it'd be loud.
Yeah, I guess I've never really contemplated what that sound would even be or how loud it could be. You know, it's just not a thing you.
I never really have either.
Yeah.
Most of the time when we're driving through, it's like, oh, we have 1 hour left. Let's hurry up and go faster.
We're at Frank Slide.
It's like the last.
So then essentially
little
people in Calgary could have heard it?
Yeah, because.
Or no, is it a little too far away?
No,
Yeah.
because Cowboy Trail is only about 70 miles.
Yeah.
So
they probably could have.
yeah.
Wow. I wonder if I don't have any relatives that were at that old. I mean, they're definitely not alive, even if they were. But I'm just.
But you
thinking if
definitely would
there's
have
any
heard it.
accounts.
I would assume in like High River.
Oh, any of those. Yeah.
Lethbridge, Cardston. Those are all close enough, I would presume.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's crazy.
So that 120 million tons came pouring down at about 60 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the part that's crazy. The town was buried, or the parts of the town that were buried, under 45 meters of stone.
Wow.
Or 145 feet-ish.
Wow.
So when we drive through 20 feet of rock,
Yeah,
there's still about 125 feet
underneath us.
Wow. And somewhere in there are all of the houses and...
Yeah, no wonder nobody was rescued. I mean, there's literally no way to get down there.
No. So, to help understand how much rock that is, you could take all the rock from the slide, you could build a wall 1 meter wide by 6 meters high.
Wow.
So we're talking about 3 feet by 18 feet, all the way from Victoria to Halifax.
Across the whole country?
Across the entire country.
Wow.
So that is, for our non-American listeners, 5,800 kilometers.
Oh my gosh.
Or for the U.S. people, about 3,600 miles.
That's
a lot of rock.
Yeah.
It's a whole mountain.
Yeah, that's a whole mountain. Did they do something wrong in the mining of it? Like, are we going to talk about?
We will talk about that.
Okay.
And for about 100 years, that's what was blamed. The mine was blamed
for that. Whatever happened to Sleeping Man who got, knocked out of his sleep?
He was good.
He just like watched the whole thing
I think he went back to bed.
Okay.
Probably angry. Said some curse words and went back
like,
to sleep.
Dang, I lost my job.
And my wife and kids.
I'm glad I'm on this side of the mountain. I mean, really, though.
No, that's a good point. It's a good question you ask, because can you imagine walking outside and everything you know is gone?
Everything.
Like,
everyone, everything,
it'd be so trippy, because it's like you're in the right place, but it's not the right place.
Well, it would look totally different with
exactly
the whole chunk missing of the mountain and spread out all over the
right.
however far.
Because obviously, if you survive, whatever you're in's fine.
Yeah.
So let's say you're in your house and you walk on your front porch, and normally you see the town of Frank, and now you see
the mountain,
a bunch of rock.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But you're still in your house. You remember when we talked about the Japanese soldier that wouldn't surrender?
Uh-huh.
And if you haven't heard that episode, he didn't surrender for like 30 years. He was off in the jungle hiding.
He had
killing people.
Lost his
But
mind.
one of the things that they did to try to get him to surrender is they dropped photos of his hometown showing like, look, the war's over, people are happy. But because his hometown had been bombed so bad, it had been rebuilt. So it was like the same, but it wasn't the same. So we didn't believe him. And I think that's kind of the same feeling you would have.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're like, okay, this is Alberta where I normally live. And if I look to my left, that looks normal. But if I look to my right,
it's like it's
a totally different world than it was a minute and a half ago.
That'd be trippy.
That would be trippy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Wow.
So, yeah, the aftermath was insane.
I can only imagine.
So one of the survivors was a brakeman for the train company.
Like a guy that stops the trains?
Mhm.
Like a brake?
Yep.
Okay.
I assume he's the guy maybe that like switches the tracks and stuff like that.
Kind of.
So he realized pretty quickly, like there was a huge part of the track that was no longer
Like
there,
working.
like a mile and a half of track that was no longer there.
He had to tell the trains.
But there was a train coming that morning.
Oh, gee.
And so he took off running over the loose debris field. I think, like as I said, it was about a mile and a half that he had to climb over to get to the other side, ran down the track until he got to the train coming, waved him down to get him to stop.
This is like no
before they
radio.
Plowed into.
Right, but there's like no radio system or anything in this situation to tell anybody, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
but he did.
And
he
they
got him to
stopped?
stop. Yeah. So that was cool.
That's great.
Uh-huh. Some of the other survivors included, kind of surprisingly, the miners that were working at the time.
That were in the
that
mountain?
were in the mountain.
It's funny. They're like inside the mountain, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, look at this view. I can see everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's not quite like
There's
that.
a window.
But there's a window.
So obviously they could hear the rock slide.
Oh, I would be literally crapping my pants.
But I have no idea. I mean, I assume you would think that it's a cave-in.
Oh, for sure. That's what I'm
And
saying.
sure
is
it's shaking like crazy.
yes,
and
you think
there
you're
are probably
dead.
rocks falling all over in there too.
But they actually lived, huh?
So they were trapped in the mine. They survived, but because so many things broke, and obviously rocks were being moved around, let's
Dislodged,
say.
if you will.
Dislodged. They were trapped in the mine.
Yeah. This
And-
is so much anxiety. It's like this mining thing and like thinking of a submarine and then thinking of those people going down, the photographer people. What was that story? Down to photographer the caves.
Oh, the caves.
The
from
caves.
A few weeks ago.
It's the same terrifying.
You really don't do well with these claustrophobic kind of
I don't
stories.
know. I guess I never really realized it as I'm listening to it. I'm like, I just get this feeling.
Well, we're going to do more of those this year then.
Oh, great. Yes.
It's
please.
funny. Our 12-year-old is always like, Dad, that was a good episode, but not enough people died. I need more people to die.
It's kind of morbid.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm all like, nobody dies. It's
Yeah. He doesn't like the funny ones as much. So they were trapped. So they discovered that the entrance was blocked, so they couldn't get out. And water from the local river had been dammed off by the slide and now was coming into the mine via other new holes made in the mountain.
Terrifying.
And so they tried to dig their way back through the blocked entrance, but they realized quickly, like, this is never going to work. This is too blocked. So one miner suggested that he knew of a seam of coal, like a vein of coal, that reached the surface. So working in pairs, they dug through this coal for hours until, well, they kept digging and digging and digging and digging and digging. And the guys kept getting more and more tired and not being able to go. But eventually, 3 of them had enough energy and they actually broke through the surface.
No way.
Yeah. And so, but that opening was too dangerous for all the tired guys to get through. Plus, the air was getting more toxic
Why?
because it was trapped in there. There was no fresh ventilation.
But I mean, they had broken through, so then the air
well,
should be
they
able
had,
to come
but this
in.
was like not a direct shot. Like they had, weaved up in and out. So, and so they actually cut in a new shaft that broke through from all of the. They found another spot to essentially remove rockslide rock to break in to get to the other guys, and it took 13 hours, but every single one of them survived.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
they literally had to climb their own way out. But then once they get out, they realize, oh, everybody that we know and love is gone.
Well,
Our town is gone. Everything is gone.
well, sure, but that's still amazing that
Oh, it
they
is
were
amazing.
able to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
out.
yeah.
You know.
For sure. So in another part of the town, a man's house was buried only under a few meters of rock, which is still a lot of rock, but sounds better than 145 feet or 45 meters.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to climb up with his three daughters, but his wife and four sons didn't make it. So you had a lot of these kind of stories. There was another story I heard of a group of three sisters who survived, but their parents didn't, and they ended up all getting adopted by different families and grew up separately and everything. And it wasn't until like the 1950s or 60s that they were reunited.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, there's lots of terrible situations that arose from the slide.
Wow.
We don't know exactly how many people died, but they do know that they're pretty sure there was at least 90, but maybe up to as high as 110 or 120.
Well, I thought you said the town was booming and it had like 1,000 people in it.
So it did. So actually, a lot of the town wasn't in the rockslide, which is kind of, I think, a misguided thought, when you drive through, that the whole town was ruined. And we'll kind of get to why there's no town of Frank anymore. But a lot of the town wasn't destroyed.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not near as many people as I think I was guessing. So that's good.
But like you said, they were only ever able to recover 12 bodies.
Right. It was just like...
And so it was so deep, so big, so gone that...
there was just no way to
So
really
there's no way to
know.
accurately calculate it. So we know at least 12.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of funny. Not funny, but kind of funny. So a decade or two later,
Okay.
they were trying to clear a way for a road through that area, and they actually excavated an entire house.
Whoa.
And found 6 more bodies or skeletons. So eventually they recovered 18 bodies, but it wasn't for a few decades later.
A few decades. Wow.
That the other 6. But it could have been much, much worse.
Yeah.
So interesting, and this would be interesting to be one of these guys. 128 workers, men, were supposed to arrive the day before to work the mine, and would have been there at the camp that got buried, but the train in BC never picked them up.
Like the train just never came?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like something happened. So I'm sure the day before, these guys were all very angry that they didn't get to go to work.
Yeah. And then the next day they
And
were
the
like,
next day they're like,
oh,
whoa.
hallelujah.
Yeah, that was very fortuitous.
No kidding.
And so there could have been, 128 guys that would have like doubled
Yeah. That really
the
would have.
fatalities.
Right. Oof.
So now let's go back to this. So like I said, we've been there many, many times, never stopped. But today when you drive through, it is kind of weird because you're driving through British Columbia and it's gorgeous and it's rocky and it's pine trees and it's all the things you would think of the Canadian Rockies look like.
Yeah.
And then as you come to the Alberta border, it kind of starts thinning out, but there's a gorgeous lake right there. And then you just all of a sudden come to
So much rock.
nothing but rock.
Yeah.
All around you.
Mm-hmm.
And the mountain, you can definitely tell where the rock came from.
Oh, yeah.
It looks almost like gravel
Mm-hmm.
where it broke off.
Slid off. Mm-hmm.
And they do have a visitor center there.
They do. I know your parents stopped.
Did they?
Mhm.
That sounds like my parents.
Yeah. When they either surprised us one time or drove up for a reception. I can't remember. But they've stopped.
Yeah, I'm the youngest. And I spent the last 6, 7, 8 years of my life being the only one at the house.
Stopping at all the
We
visitors.
stopped at a lot of historical sites on like the Oregon Trail and whatever else. Like I've been to mines, I've been to copper pits, I've been to all sorts of places.
And I'm the oldest. And my parents are like, I do not want to stop with any of these young kids. We are not stopping. So maybe Shelby stopped at a bunch of visitor centers, but I don't think so.
I mean, they're interesting.
Oh, sure. I
But,
think I would like to, but the thought of trying to do that with our children is like, no.
A few years ago, I had to drive by myself out to Riggins, Idaho to go whitewater rafting. Remember this?
Oh, I was terrified.
Everyone
that
thought
you
I died.
Yeah, that you
But I
were
didn't.
gone.
It only thought I was dead for 1 hour.
It was terrifying. No one could find you.
No one could find me. But I was just fine. But on the way out there, there's all these historical trestled train bridges out in the middle of nowhere in Idaho
What? Huh. Okay.
that span, various canyons and stuff. And there's actually one gorgeous one that is up above you and it just follows these mountains and you can see it up there. But they have like historical signs on the side of the road. And I totally stopped at all of them and read them because I was by myself.
And you could.
And I could.
See the things you do. And when you think that you're on time or ahead of time and you're not and you're late and everyone thinks you're dead.
At this point, I was just fine on time. It wasn't until the next morning that I miscalculated time in a place with no cell phone service. And everyone thought I was dead.
Yeah. It doesn't work very good when that happens.
But I was taking nice pictures in the canyon. In what canyon was I in? Hell's Canyon? Maybe. I don't remember.
I don't know.
I was on the Salmon River. I think the Snake River runs through Hell's Canyon, so I don't think it was Hell's. Anyways, doesn't matter. Back to historical sites. There's one at Frank if you ever want to go.
You should go. And someday we will
We
go.
should go. But our kids usually have to pee really bad by then, and we just want to get home. So we don't
That's
stop.
truth. It's so much truth.
So because the slide was so massive, there's no effort ever to clean it.
Right.
Not that you really even could clean it.
It's still
They
just
just
there.
left it there. And it's still there, like you said, yeah. I always assumed, and I don't know why I assumed this poorly, that was the end of the town of Frank.
I think I've assumed that too.
But the town just kept going. Like, for those who survived, like, life needed to keep going on. And so the rail line, like I said, had about 1.5 miles of track buried, but they cleared it and had it up and running within 3 weeks.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
How on earth did they clear it?
I don't know. And by clear, I don't know if that means they remove all the stones or they just clear enough to build a new track.
Right. Interesting.
But on May 30th, so when did I say this was?
How much later was that happen?
Don't ask me these hard questions. April 29th, so about a month later, 30 days later. The miners had cleared the opening to the mine and began entering it again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just
Now, this is the coolest part of this whole story.
okay.
The mine had 3 horses that worked full-time underground. Like moving coal and stuff.
How do you get a horse into the mine?
Just walk it in the mine entrance. Probably the same way you get a person in the mine.
Are all the people? But you can just walk. I mean, like, don't you? I don't know. I guess I've never really. You just walk into the mine and then. But don't you have to go down and on things?
Well, there's like elevators.
But like the horse can go in the elevator.
Sure, horses love elevators.
Okay. Maybe I am the only person out there that had never contemplated the fact that there might be horses in a mine. Maybe.
Well, I definitely never thought about it, but it didn't weird me out when I read about it.
But like, seriously, like these elevators aren't meant for just a person or a couple people. Like a horse is a very
they'll
different
shove
shape.
like 40 miners in those things.
Okay. Well, cool.
Yeah, so it's been a month.
Mm-hmm.
And they're down there cleaning up, and lo and behold, they find Charlie the horse, alive, just roaming around in the mine.
What did it eat?
He had been living off of bark of the timbers and drinking water that had come in through the dammed up river.
What?
Yeah.
That poor guy. So tell me this. What about his other 2 friends?
Well, I don't think they were in there at the time. I think it was like a shift work.
Charlie was on shift?
Yeah.
Oh, Charlie.
He survived a month by himself.
Was he super skinny?
Probably.
Bark doesn't sound very yummy.
No, doesn't.
Wow, that's impressive.
So, Charlie the horse.
I love horses.
He's my favorite.
He's my favorite.
So by 1906,
Okay, so 3 years later? Is that,
the population of Frank was now over 1,200.
So-
larger than it had been before the slide.
Why is Frank not there? Like, it's not called Frank. There is no town of
There
Frank.
is
But
no
I think
town of Frank
Lundbrook.
anymore.
Is it Lundbrook is the closest one?
I don't know. So there's as you drive through this pass between Alberta and British Columbia, it is called Crow's Nest Pass. And there are a few small towns there, like real small towns, but they're all kind of
Like connected.
like one.
Yeah, like
Ethne loves to get tickets there.
no.
So much. It's like not going home unless she gets a speeding ticket in one of these 3 towns.
No. Anywhere in Canada. It's not just there. You can't say it's only there. I've only had
That's
one
true.
there, maybe 2.
Well, she has a lot more speeding tickets than that.
The speeding tickets in Alberta / BC are terrible because the speed limits are terrible.
They are terrible.
And the construction of the freeway system is terrible.
I agree with all these terrible.
Okay, sorry.
Driving in Canada sucks, period.
Aw. Okay.
There's no freeway system.
Yeah, but there is.
No, there's 2-lane highway system everywhere.
No, but there's the one all the way across the country.
The Trans Canada.
Mhm.
Well, I've never been on it.
That's
other
the
than
only
downtown Calgary.
That's the only one.
because doesn't do me any good.
Okay.
But so yeah, it's a good question. There is no longer a town of Frank right now
Right.
when
That's
you go there,
what I'm trying to figure
which
out
is probably why we always assumed that it died off
with the avalanche. Or
avalanche.
the rock slide.
Yeah, sorry. 1906 though, it was bigger than before the rock slide.
Okay.
So here's the problem though. In 1911, all the bad things happened in 1911.
Yeah, what other bad things?
Another rock slide.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. So the town was still growing, but the people kind of were concerned about maybe why that rock slide thing had happened in the first place. And a lot of these people are new people to the area, and so they're probably thinking like, I wonder if it might happen again.
Yeah. I mean, rightfully so.
But it had kind of become just like it is now. It was almost, I mean, for those who had lived through it, obviously you were never going to get over it. But a lot of new families had moved into the area, a lot of new miners. So, I mean, like the kids grew up just playing on the boulders,
Yeah.
you know, with the town buried underneath them. But to them, it was just
That's how
like
it looked.
growing up anywhere else.
Right.
So they wanted to know, like, okay, could this happen again? So they commissioned a team of scientists to come in and study the mountain.
Interesting.
Now, I don't know what you do in 1911, geology,
yeah, I don't know either.
but they deemed that, yes, the mountain was still very unstable. And so they ordered the entire town to move.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, you can totally move a town.
Yeah. And what do you do to test this?
This is what I was just saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
They probably just like stood there and threw rocks at the mountain and then would see how many would come down. I said, yeah, this looks not stable.
Yeah, like I wonder what kind of equipment they had at that time or tests that they would do to determine that it was unstable. But anyway, okay.
So any newer, nicer buildings, they literally picked up off their foundations.
You're kidding.
Nope.
Okay.
And moved them to the other towns nearby on new foundations.
So maybe
And older buildings, they would just knock down or leave. And when you go by, there's all sorts of abandoned stuff all over through there.
Interesting. So maybe some of the buildings that are there that you drive through, like Lundbrook and whatever the other towns' names are houses that were moved from Frank.
Some of them could be.
Huh. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. But in 1918, the mine was closed. And that, and not the rock slide, was what killed the town of Frank.
Yeah. Closing So, but
But
why
it's still all coal mining area, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that what it's all?
Oh, totally. So Sparwood, not too far away from there,
Oh, that's true.
has the huge truck, has like their symbol, and that's a huge mining truck. And there still is a huge mine that basically all of Sparwood works at.
Right.
I mean, not all, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Huge
that
mine.
mine closed.
But what caused it to close? With the tests that those guys did in 1911, they thought, oh, with it being unstable, we need to close for safety? Or did it run out of coal or?
It's a good, solid question. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
If it's a
Interesting.
combination of both those things, or if it just wasn't lucrative enough anymore. They'd mined it out, or I don't know.
I mean, the fear of being told the mountain's unstable might be just enough of a reason.
Maybe, but even then, it was 7 years later.
Yeah, that is a long time later, huh?
Yeah. I mean, they were almost just as close to when the rockslide happened
Right.
than they were from being told.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, so the big question is, why did it happen in the first place?
Yeah. Have they determined now?
They
with
have.
all this
So,
scientific
like I said,
information.
it was blamed for the mine was blamed for years for undermining.
The strength of the mountain.
Right.
And
Undermining, is that the right word?
I would assume so.
No, I'm
I
not-
mean, you're
I'm
like
saying
giving,
that
you're
right.
making it weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, undermining it.
Huh. I never realized that the root for that word is literally mining.
I mean, I would think so.
Interesting. Sorry. Side note here for me. So for one, the stone there is really weak stone. It's mostly limestone and shale. So it's
Those
not
are
like the
weak.
strongest mountains in the
Right.
world. But it was just actually in the year 2000 where it was examined, and they found that a thrust fault lied beneath Turtle Mountain.
Thrust vault?
Fault. with an
Fault.
F.
Oh, like a fault line.
Like a fault
okay.
line.
Okay.
But a thrust fault is a special kind of fault that runs more vertical,
Okay.
and it is where older rock that lies underneath newer rock gets pushed vertically, and it almost creates like a wave. So as the older rock gets pushed up on top of the newer rock, then that newer rock becomes super, super unstable on the front side or on the top. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure if I'm following.
It's hard. If you look it up and you look at diagrams, you're like, oh, I see what
If you look up
about.
what was it again?
A thrust
fault.
fault. F-A-U-L-T. So
Thrust
the older
fault.
rock gets pushed up vertically over newer rock.
Okay.
And it kind of displaces that rock off to the side.
Sure.
And so this, like I said, can create almost like this wave-like formation that's causing that newer rock to kind of slough off and collapse.
So it was just a
Only
really
you're
big.
doing this over millions of years.
Ah.
It's a very slow process. So you had lots of factors going on. You had one, this is made of fairly weak stone. You have this thrust fault pushing it, which is why really it has been moving for years.
Right.
The Native Americans wouldn't like camp on it or stay on it.
They obviously knew something
Right.
if they called it the mountain that moves.
Yeah. So you had that whole thing going on. Plus you had the mine weakening it even further by drilling all these holes throughout it. And then that year in specific, or specifically, they had a very warm but wet winter.
Okay.
And so you had lots of precipitation, and you had really warm days and really cold nights. And so the water would melt and freeze and melt and freeze and melt and freeze in all these cracks on the surface of the mountain. And it just was moving it that much more.
Interesting.
So you kind of had this
Really bad combo.
that eventually it just broke and gave way.
Wow. Wow. Well, I mean, if I was the guy that got thrown from my bed, but I was in the mine when it snapped, I would be counting my blessings that I
sure.
was sleeping on the side of the mountain and not in the mountain when it all happened.
Yeah, that is pretty remarkable. It was the same guy
Yeah.
both times.
Yeah.
So the real question is, How stable is the mountain today?
Well, I'm assuming that they've done tests, but at the same time, I'm assuming if it takes millions of years for the thrust fault to do its thing, I mean, we're golden, right?
Yeah. So geologists say that it's not if it will break again. It definitely will break again. But it probably won't be anytime soon.
Right. And also it doesn't matter because there's already so much rock around there and no civilization.
Well, what if like the other end of it, like the more, I call it the south end. It's the end we could drive to first. I actually don't know what direction that is. But that whole side of the mountain could go.
Yeah, it could. But even then, there's not a lot still over there. Is there?
And as far as population and
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah, no, there's not much stuff.
Yeah, there's not like a lot of people or a
Right.
town or, I mean, so.
The only big thing that could change it would be an earthquake. An earthquake could push that timeline sooner as far as another rock slide going again on the mountain.
Because it would move the thrust fault with the earthquake?
Right,
Or,
because you're just shaking it.
oh, that makes sense.
Do you know how many earthquakes Alberta gets in a year?
6.
About 150.
Oh, I would never
Me either.
guess that many. Really?
Yeah. No,
Huh.
they're obviously probably pretty small.
Yeah, like I wonder what the definition
And
of
Alberta's ginormous.
an
So who
earthquake
knows
is.
how.
Well, yeah, it's huge. But I mean, I wonder what the actual definition of an earthquake is, you know? I don't know what that
I don't know how.
definition, right, is
How
defined.
shaky on the Richter scale you have to be.
Right. I would literally never
Yawn in the middle
guessed.
of the podcast?
I
Oh.
would never have guessed that it would take, I don't know. I mean, 160? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
It would
Well, I said about 150. I think it's like 156 or 8 or something like that.
earthquakes, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever, to my knowledge, growing up or anything, have really heard of one happening or, I mean, they have to be super tiny.
I bet most are.
Yeah, that's crazy though. I do remember tornadoes and tornado warnings, which is also not common, but I do remember that more so on the Edmonton side of things. But I feel like if it was big enough to even make any kind of difference in any way, I feel like growing up, I would have heard about it, you know, something you would have talked about, or it would have been on the news or so those must be teeny weeny.
Teeny weeny.
But I think Japan experiences a ton. Like when I had that one in Japan, they were all kind of like, oh yeah, that's an earthquake. Meh.
Yeah.
You know, just like whatever. So but theirs are big enough that you saw and felt evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Tricky.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So anyway, that's Frank's slide.
Frank Slide. Well, there you have it, people. You should go and see the visitor center and see what else you can learn from them that you haven't already learned from us if you're not too far away.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
See if anything I told you is accurate.
Yeah, check his work.
I have some good
Fact
sources.
check him. Yeah, I know you do. So,
I called Frank himself.
oh, I think Frank is gone. I think he has left us.
Do you think he was there when the slide happened?
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. I wonder if he passed away.
I don't know. If you own the mine, I don't know what it was like back then. Are you close by? Are you far away?
I'd assume close by.
So maybe he was just, yeah, it's
You're-
late.
you're
Lots of
over-
yawning over here.
You're overseeing it, maybe?
Maybe he's just like a big capital guy, though. Maybe he lived in like Boston.
Oh, maybe.
Just paid for everything.
No, he wouldn't lived in Boston.
Speaking of which, my trial starts back tomorrow.
Gosh. Voir dire.
Boy, dear.
That's like my favorite thing to say. I don't even, I mean, I have to go read the definition again, but voir dire
It's a good word.
just sounds fancy.
So fancy.
So, all right, guys.
Well, we will be back next week for our first episode of our second year.
Oh, that was confusing.
Maybe I'll start labeling them season 2 now.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
Or should
Season,
this be season 2? No, this is still season 1.
yeah. Season 2, episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're going to be cool.
So cool. So cool.
Oh, dear.
Awesome. Well, everybody, have a wonderful week. Be nice to people.
Just be nice.
Be nice.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with some strange news story next week about something. But I don't know what either. I got some ideas. Some good ones.
I don't have any.
You do not. So, but that's okay. That's all part of the plan.
Right. Exactly.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.
Goodbye.